How cute is that face?
Welcome back to Two Cooks and Three Cats. Today we have a French theme going on for you. Topher, what is the drink you're going to make?
Two drinks, actually. We're going to do Kir Royale, which is fairly popular, fairly well known. It's basically champagne and Chambord. The other one I found online, haven't tried it before, so we're going to try it today. It's called a French Daiquiri, and it's Bacardi rum, Chambord, and lime juice.
Oh, it's not blended. When you told me that earlier, I thought it was a blended
it's not blended. It's a martini type cocktail. So.
And then to go with these, I'm going to teach Topher all about pot au choux today. Pot au choux is a French puff dough. It can be used for both savory and dessert purposes, and we're going to show you both a savory and a dessert today. But we're going to start with your cocktails. So which one are we doing first?
We'll go ahead and start with the daiquiri since we haven't tried. I got my ice in here. So I'm going to make mine a little sweeter because I like Chambord a lot. So, I mean, normally you just take a lime, like a lime wedge would be enough juice, maybe two, to get the lime juice. We don't happen to have any limes today, so I'm just going to go with the stuff we got in the fridge. Alright, got our ingredients in, and as I always do, grab a towel because this gets really cold when shaking it up. And again, some people think shaking it too hard bruises it. I think that's a bunch of BS.
For this color.
It's gonna be really pretty.
Oh, look at that.
Almost looks like a Cosmo, actually.
Mm-hmm. It's like a lovely pink drink.
Which is funny because it's actually purple. Alright, let's see. And normally I also garnish this with a lime just for pretty, but there we have
We
it.
forgot to pick up limes today.
Oh, not bad. It's a little tart.
Oh, it's nice. It is a little tart.
And then for your classic Kir, and you can actually do what is called just a Kir with just a white wine and a shot of the Kir Royale, or a shot of the Chambord rather. A Kir Royale, the only difference is it's champagne versus a non-sparkling wine. So, got our champagne. I like to start with the champagne first. It will bubble up when you put the Chambord in, but I just like the color that it makes when you add the Chambord to the and use as little as or lot as you like, just depending on sweetness. There's no specific amount. That is pretty much what it looks like. I just like the rosé look that it gets. And that is going to be absolutely delicious.
That's lovely. That's one of my favorites. Well, we will see you back here to learn how to make pastries. Today we are going to teach Topher how to make pot au choux. And if you take a look at our ingredients over here, there are just a couple basic ingredients for it. We have a cup of water. We have half a cup of butter, which is one stick. This is unsalted. We have 1 cup of all-purpose flour, and in here we have 1 teaspoon of sugar. I like to use brown sugar, and ½ teaspoon of kosher salt. These are all going to get boiled together in this pot. This is an odd dough in that it starts on the stove, and then we're going to move over to the mixer. And the final base ingredient for this is going to be eggs that we're going to whip in. So we're going to get Topher over to the stove to show you what this process looks like.
All right, what am I doing?
So first thing you're going to do, Topher, is get your water into your pot.
So this is a cup of water.
That's 1 cup of water. You're going to get your butter in there with it. Turn the heat on to high. We need to bring this to a boil.
On high.
And you also want to get your...
Is it boiling yet?
No. You also want to get your salt and sugar.
Is it boiling yet?
In there. Take a look at the pot.
Something that has always confused me is like, what exactly is a boil?
They'll refer to things like a rolling boil or a heavy boil, and that means when you stir it, the bubbles don't go away. Okay, so this is what a boil looks like. It's a rolling boil. There's lots of steam coming off. Topher has his 1 cup of flour there. We're going to dump that whole thing into the pot all at once. No need to sprinkle or anything. Going to keep the heat on. Yeah, get it all in there quickly. And then stir. So this is going to look kind of weird and lumpy, and it's going to boil a bit while you're getting the flour incorporated. but just stir, 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 and get it all together. You don't have to be gentle. Eventually, as you stir, this is all going to come into a ball. We're going to keep that high heat going because we do want to cook off a bit of that water. Yep, and just make sure you're getting all the corners and sides and keep that thing moving around. You want to get all the dry spots out of there. Don't be gentle with that dough. Just go ahead and stir, stir, stir. And stir it in a circle, not a folding motion. There you go, yeah. You got to get it working and moving around. And you can see the dough is starting to stick together now, come into a ball, become kind of globular. And we're going to cook that just for a bit of additional time to drive off a bit of that water. You're going to get a little skin on the bottom of your pan if it's not a non-stick. Don't worry about that. Soak the pan for 10 minutes and a bit of water comes right off. Alright, we're not looking for any browning to happen on the bottom of the pan or for the flour. I think we're good to go. We'll see you back over at the mixer. Okay, so we are at our mixer now, and the last ingredient we need to add is 4 eggs. We have 4 of those cracked into our little beaker here. First thing you want to do, Topher, and we're going to get some close-ups of this dough because I want you guys to see how this looks through the mixing process because it really changes. This dough is very hot in here. It doesn't look like it because you don't see any steam, but wait until we get this going. Topher, I want you to put that down, lock it in, and turn it on about medium speed. We're going to do this for 15 to 20 seconds. Look at all that steam coming out of the dough. If we don't do this first and we pour our eggs in, there's a chance our eggs will cook and we'll get curdles in our dough. Alright, turn that mixer speed down to low. You want the mixer going while you do this, it just makes the mixing easier. You're going to add 1 egg at a time. So 1 egg at a time. And when it first mixes in there, it's going to look kind of gloopy and odd, especially as we add more and more eggs. But you want that first egg to incorporate a bit until the next one. Okay, now you can do the next one. And each time you add an egg, you'll see that it looks kind of slimy.
Snotty.
Yes, professional cooking term. It looks like snot. You can see as it mixes together, it starts to get less slimy. And as that slimy look goes away, so if I'm going to reach over and turn this up just a tiny bit. You can turn it up in between egg additions. See how that looks more like a paste? That's what we're looking for. So go ahead and add the next one. Now, if you have this on high speed, when you add an egg in there, there's a good chance it'll go in and then get knocked right back out the other side and onto your counter. So don't do that. So I want you to stop the mixer now and tilt it up.
Get some of the...
Yep, you want to scrape your bowl. Scraping is always very important in doing any baking, but get any globs of unmixed dough off the paddle, get it down off around the sides and the bottom, like you can see Topher is doing there. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just get most of it. Alright, now that all of our eggs are in there, and Topher, you can go ahead and put the head of the mixer back down, lock it in, and you can turn that up to medium-high. And we're just going to mix this until it's a nice, springy paste. And it's hard to see on camera, but if you look at the sides here, you can see the paste is being cooled and then springs back a bit. I think that's looking pretty good. Go ahead and stop the mixer.
Should we do sides one more time, or is that good?
Yeah, go ahead and scrape the sides one more time. And we'll get one more close-up of this. You can see...
Oh yeah, that's not gloopy and whatnot.
It's a very smooth paste, and this is what you're looking for. If you see any shiny or gloopy or, snotty looking parts, then go ahead and turn up your mixer a little bit more. What's that?
So if it looks snotty, tell it to go to its room?
Yes, you snotty little dough. Leave the room immediately. Alright, so this is your base pot of choux. We are going to divide this dough in half and get it into our piping bag, which we'll show you how to pipe in a moment. But then, to turn this into savory gougeres, we have some chopped garlic, we have some Dijon here, we have black pepper, this is Gruyere cheese, and we also have some Frank's Red Hot there. It's our favorite hot sauce to use in this house. So in order to fill a pastry bag, you want to have 1/3 of the cuff over your hand that's in a little C shape, and hold the bag open like that. And then you can use the spatula to scrape against your thumb to get it into the bag. And we're going to take half this dough here. And then you can just squeeze it down. And
Is this like cake batter? Do you want to lick the bowl?
no, not at all.
I tried.
We're gonna grab ourselves a scraper. These guys are really handy. And this gives you a clean bag to work with. And we're gonna set that aside for right now, but we're gonna finish and make our gougere dough. So Topher, you are going to add the rest of your ingredients to here.
So all of the garlic, correct?
Yep, all the garlic. Your teaspoon of Dijon. If you prefer country Dijon, which is the mostly whole seeds of mustard, it gives a really lovely texture and flavor to this dish. So you can use either one.
Wait,
this
is
is
this
just
grape-
as smooth.
Is this Grey Poupon?
No, this is Trader Joe's Dijon.
You don't have any Grey Poupon?
Mm.
Excuse me, sir. Do you have any Grey Poupon?
I'm not fancy here, honey.
Oh. He ain't fancy.
And then we need about a half a cup of that Gruyere. So I would say 2 big handfuls. And we're going to do a couple grams of fresh pepper here. This adds a really lovely floral plus just a tiny bit of spice to it. And I've got a little more than 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper here. That's going to go right in. That's good, Topher. You don't want too much cheese in there because it'll lose all of its structure when it bakes up. And then you're going to grab your Frank's Red Hot. And let's do about 4 drops of that. You can adjust that up and down as much as you like spice.
I wonder how the Tabasco jalapeno would be used.
It's really good in these.
I bet.
I'd use Tabasco in my original recipe for this.
More? Less?
No, that's good. So then you want to turn that on high and just get everything mixed together. That's great. Don't want to overmix.
Yummy. It smells delicious.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that cheese smells beautiful.
God, when these are done, they taste like the best cheese that you've ever eaten, but light and fluffy.
Light
I know
and
that's a
fluffy.
bad comparison, but it's the closest thing I can think to compare it to. Okay.
All right, we're gonna rearrange our setting here a bit, and we'll be back to show you how to pipe these out. Okay, so we're getting ready to pipe these guys out. Now, we are using a piping bag today with a circular tip. We're also going to do our gougeres with a star tip. It'll just give it a nice little form when it bakes up. You can also use 2 teaspoons to just scoop out a little bit of dough and put it on here. These guys grow enormously. Now, this is not a yeast-based dough, but because of all the moisture we have inside and the eggs and the gluten that got built up in here during the mixing action, they will trap all of that moisture that turns to steam, and these guys are going to balloon up. And if you don't know already, Pot au Choux is what makes cream puffs. I don't think I mentioned that in the very beginning. That's the dessert that we're making today. So a little secret for piping these guys, your parchment paper will move all around. So the first thing I like to do is a very tiny bit of dough in the 4 corners of the pan. Your parchment paper goes down, and then it'll stick to the pan and shouldn't move around too much on you. Right, so to start this guy, you want to start close to your parchment paper and go around in a little circle, and just like that.
It's like a Hershey's Kiss.
It is. Now when we finish these guys, we're actually going to make that peak go away. If we were to leave that as is, these would pick up like little wizard's hats, which if you're having a Harry Potter party might be
Harry
fun.
Potty Party?
Harry Potty party. That might be
Doesn't
okay.
sound like a fun potty or party.
But we generally want these guys to be a fairly round shape. If you pipe these out into long tubes, you would be able to make eclairs. It's the same dough. And you can make these as big or as small as you would like. Making them bigger will require extra baking time.
And we've already preheated our oven to
425.
425. That's always the first thing you want to do. Preheat the oven. Make sure it's ready and nice and hot.
So we have these all spaced out. You should do about 12 per tray. Now what we're going to do, I have a little finger bowl here with water in it. We want to get these caps patted down, but if we did it with just my finger, our dough would stick. So a little bit of water on your fingertip, and we just pat them down flat like that. Okay, so for our gougeres, we're going to do the same thing, but we changed out tips. We now have a star tip on here. And when you're handling your pastry bag, once you have everything down in here and you have this twisted, you want to squeeze that twist shut between your index finger and your thumb. And to squeeze the bag to get the dough out, squeeze with this hand. This hand is for direction and stability only. If you squeeze with this one, it's going to squeeze the dough back up this way and you're going to fight against yourself. So always squeeze from the top. As this gets smaller, you twist and make it tighter. And when we start, we're going to start down on the parchment paper, do a small round back to the center, stop squeezing, and then pull up. If you keep squeezing as you pull up, you'll get a big long thing of dough. So we're going to let Topher do the rest of these. Okay, so start with your tip down near. Do a circle about the same size that I did, back to the center, and up. Nicely done. You don't have to go quick. You can go as slow as you need to. And squeeze a little more when you're doing these because you want to get a little more dough on there. There you go. And keep that tip close to the baking sheet as you do that base circle. You don't need to have it lifted up. There you go. That's much better. And as the dough gets a little cooler, it'll be a little thicker to squeeze out. So you may have to give a little more pressure, especially when you're finishing up in the center there. Now your gougeres, when they bake up, because these have extra things in them like the cheese and a little bit of Tabasco, makes them a little heavier. They're not going to be as puffy as our plain pot au choux, but they're still going to be light and airy. And depending on the size you make, you should get between 24 to 30 gougeres / pot au choux per recipe of dough. And you can see Topher's leaving a bit of space between these, just like our other pot au choux, because these are going to rise both up and out. So you can see on that one there's a little bit of pressure at the end, Topher, when you came up, and that's what caused that little spike. Beautiful. So you have a little bit of dough left in there. Go ahead and top some of the flatter guys off. And that just lets us use our dough and add a little more volume to these. Now you can see that we still have tips on these. And we are going to flatten out the very tips, but we used a star tip because I think those ridges will give an interesting texture when they puff up in the oven, but we don't want a big wizard hat growing up.
I'm going to pause the...
That's fine. Pat these down. Okay, welcome back. So we have our gougeres and our pot au choux all done here. You can see their color, a fairly deep golden brown, well, kind of light golden brown, a little deeper on these guys because we have some added fat in there. They've puffed up nicely. And look on the close-up here. To tell when they're done in the oven, you want to take a look at the sides. See how this is all a nice, even, light brown color? If this is a light band of pale, pale yellow, you want them to go a little bit longer. They need to have enough structural integrity so that they don't collapse when they come out of the oven. And the best way to do that, your recipe says to look for them to stop sweating. That's when I couldn't get a good shot of it, unfortunately. But it's when you see little beads of fat no longer coming out of the tops of these. And then, once they're done, turn your oven off, leave the trays in the oven, and put a wooden spoon in the door so that the oven door is stuck ajar. Let them cool that way for about 40 minutes. A nice slow cool down will give plenty of time for your dough to set on the sides so that they don't collapse when they come out. Once these are completely, you can take them out of the oven after that, and once these are completely cool, these can store in an airtight container for a day or two on your countertop. You can also freeze these for about 2 months. Now the gougeres are all done. These are ready to eat and lovely, but we're gonna have Topher show you how to fill our cream puffs. We are going to make our sweet cream filling for our cream puffs. Topher, here you have a cup of heavy whipping cream, then go right in your bowl. We have about 2 tablespoons of maple syrup here. We want to make a maple cream today. You can use regular sugar in this, you can use brown sugar in this. You can add some vanilla to this if you would rather. You can really make whatever flavor you would like. It's just a simple whipped cream filling. And we're also going to add just a pinch of salt in there. And maple syrup can all go in. And we're just going to whip this up into a stiff cream. If you don't know already, when you are whipping cream, you want to make sure not to over whip it because it will eventually turn into butter. So once we have stiff peaks on this, it will be ready to go. You can do it by hand, you can use a mixer, the whisk attachment. We have an immersion blender that we're going to use with our whisk attachment, just until it's nice and thick. So let's get a close-up going here. So today we're going to use a chopstick to make a little hole in these guys. If you have a nice sturdy tip, you don't have to do this. But the tip in my bag is a little smaller and not as sturdy, so we don't want it to go in the bag when we do it. And we have our maple whipped cream here. He's going to put the tip in and just give a light squeeze until we start to see a little bit of the cream coming out. And there we go. That is absolutely lovely. And he'll do a second one for us here to see again. Now you can also really anywhere, Topher. You can also dip the tops of these guys in a little bit of ganache and let them cool on a rack. We're not doing that today. Now, those are generally called profiteroles, and they're also usually filled with ice cream, not whipped cream. But you can call them whatever you want when you make them.
I guess we'll keep those here.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. We're done with the close-ups. So I say we eat one of these bad guys.
So good.
Keep in mind that after these come out of the oven, they'll continue to set in the center a bit. As they cool, but they're nice and airy and fluffy on the inside. And they're so cheesy and delicious. What's your favorite thing about these?
They're just a great, savory, tasty snack. Great for appetizers. These would go good with like a cheese and fruit tray.
If you're serving a little tapas menu for the evening, these go great with it.
It's like a Cheez-It, but like a million times better.
And then we can try our desserty ones. So, pot of choux is always nice. Let's break open an empty one. The ones without cheese are a little fluffier and airier inside. They have huge space in there. So when you squeeze the cream in...
Oh, I didn't get that much cream in this one.
when you squeeze the cream in, it goes into all the air bubbles. And you can always squeeze more in when you're done. You can also break these open, scoop your cream in if you don't have a pastry bag, and then put the top back on. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
No, that is perfect.
And because the dough only has a little bit of sugar and salt in them, these what makes them great for both savory and sweet snacks.
I was gonna say I love this because it's the cream mix is really sweet, but the dough itself it just balances it nicely. Especially if there's a little chocolate drizzle on top.
So, thank you for joining us for the French pot au choux and cocktail episode, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.